everyone, No One Consequence here, back with another episode of my Give the People What They Want series. My last video in this series centered on this silly Reddit post talking about making player character death optional because a specific player had requested it. If you haven't seen that video yet, you should go back and watch it now, because this is a follow-up video and otherwise it may not make quite as much sense. But just to summarize, in that video, I talked about how all of the dungeon tubers I watched were against the idea of no player character death in a campaign. Everyone, that is, except for this one, J. Scott Garibay. Now, although I was aware of Garibay, I do not normally follow his channel. However, YouTube recommended to me a video he made on the topic of player character death, so I watched it. I did not realize at the time how deep a rabbit hole I was about to be led down. Garibay specifically singled out Professor Dungeon Master's response to the question of player character death, and more specifically this statement.
And the games aren't very fun because there's really no challenge to them.
Garibay took great offense to Professor DM's suggestion that removing player character death would make the game less fun. His response to Professor DM's comment was this.
He said it. He's like, this is not going to be fun. Well, first of all, who cares, right? Why do you need to have fun at the table? Maybe you could grow or learn or become a better person.
So in my own video, I offered a rebuttal to the idea that the Dungeon Master doesn't need to have fun. Essentially, I said that if the Dungeon Master isn't having fun, then ultimately no one will have fun, because it is the DM who is putting in all the work to make the game happen. And if they just aren't into it, then the game is doomed to fail. However, I must now admit that I made a mistake in that video. I just assumed that while Garibay believes the Dungeon Master doesn't need to have fun, the DM must still ensure that the players are having fun. But I was wrong. I now know that Garibay believes no one should be playing the Dungeons & Dragons game just to have fun. I learned this by watching several more of his videos, all published around the same time as his Professor Dungeon Master critique video. Several relevant thumbnails are shown here. Garibay made these other videos in response to a panel he attended at the recent Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo. The panel consisted of Kelsey Dion of Shadow Dark fame, Professor Dungeon Master, and a couple other dungeon tubers. I've yet to find a video of the panel itself, so for now all I have is Garibay's word on what was discussed. Anyway, after the convention, Garibay had some things to say about what was discussed during the panel.
The purpose of tabletop role-playing games, right? What is it? Well, there were two things mentioned within the panel. Fun, of course, right? Like it's always mentioned, right? And telling a story, right? Now, here's what I'm saying. All of this is bunk. All of this is wrong.
So again, we are told that the Dungeons & Dragons game is not about having fun. To claim otherwise is, quote, bunk. And then we are told what the Dungeons & Dragons game is really about.
I think the purpose of Dungeons & Dragons is to improve ourselves as human beings.
In a separate video, Garibay elaborates on what the Dungeons & Dragons game is really about.
The point of Dungeons & Dragons, because I really don't care about ttrpgs, I only care about D&D, is not fun, not to tell a story. It is to not to cut goblins in half, but to cut your own deficiencies in half, cut the deficiencies of everyone at your table in half, and send them forth into the world to fix the world.
To fix the world. High aspirations indeed for a game. Garibay also believes that as a Dungeon Master, it is bad for you to have the same players for more than a few years, because that is a sign of stagnation.
We never see our player again because they go on to bigger and better tables, right? Where they play bigger and better games because they've surpassed us.
Well, I thought they were supposed to leave your game table and go out and fix the world, but, whatever. It's as if Scott Garibay sees the gaming table as something akin to a Buddhist monastery in the Himalayas, where you go for a period of time to learn and grow, and then you move on to another one even higher up in the mountains.
When you take the pebble from my hand, it will be time for you to leave.
Maybe substitute the pebble with a D20. And furthermore, how do you know when you've reached the D&D equivalent of Nirvana? Is it when you get invited to appear on Critical Role? The idea that the same group of friends would want to spend years getting together to have fun playing the Dungeons & Dragons game seems completely alien to Scott Garibay, because in his mind, that's not what the game is for. In one of the videos, Garibay finally tells us his theory on the secret purpose of the Dungeons & Dragons game.
So I believe that Gary Gygax built a human improvement engine and disguised it as a game.
So, just to reiterate, Dungeons & Dragons is actually a, quote, human improvement engine intentionally disguised as a game. Now, at face value, I suppose I should be pleased that someone is praising Gygax rather than trying to virtue signal by taking a dump on his legacy. I myself have been called a Gygax apologist on at least one occasion. But even I have a hard time believing that Gary Gygax had a secret, deeper purpose behind publishing the Dungeons & Dragons game. And besides, all we have to do is look at Gygax's own words. For example, in July 1978, Gygax wrote this in Dragon 16. Gaming is a form of play. Games are usually for diversion or amusement, although sometimes they are played for a stake, gambling, or prizes. They are typically contests. Fun is a synonym for game. Then he mentions people who would rather argue about the game than play it, and then he goes on to say, the uniform element amongst these individuals is a complete failure to grasp the simple fact that D&D is a game. Then, not quite a year later, Gygax wrote this in Dragon number 26. D&D initiated a tradition of fun and enjoyment in hobby gaming. It was never meant to be taken seriously. AD&D is in the same mold. Games are for fun, and AD&D is a game. It certainly provides a vehicle which can be captivating and a pastime in which one can easily become immersed, but is nonetheless only a game. The bulk of participants echo this attitude. So there it is from the man himself. Dungeons & Dragons is only a game made for having fun. It's nothing more complicated than that. However, I suspect Garibay will never believe that Gygax was being honest when he wrote those words, in the same sense that moon landing hoaxers and flat earthers will never be convinced of the truth, no matter how much evidence is shown to them. Anyway, Garibay had a lot more to say on this topic. I've actually barely scratched the surface in this video. This isn't even all the thumbnails for the videos he's made about the subject. I couldn't fit them all into a single page. So, if you really want to take a deep dive into Garibay's thoughts on all this, then strap yourself in and go give his channel a visit. Alright, well that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. If you can, please leave a comment and let me know what you think. If you have not yet, please subscribe to the channel. If you know of a good place, please share the video. And anything you do to help support the channel, I appreciate it. Thanks again. Bye for now.
Gotta get up.